Good day, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel from DevOps.com, and you're listening to another DevOps.com webinar. Thanks very much for attending. We have a great webinar today. I think you're going to like it. It is sponsored by Cover, company doing some interesting things around DevOps. Before we get started, though, I wanted to just quickly go over some ground rules here, so that we all can really enjoy and get the most out of your webinar experience. We have set aside time for questions at the conclusion of today's webinar. And as such, we're going to ask that you ask questions if you have any, and we're sure you will, to put them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. And for most of you, that's on the right side of your screen. If you go down the control panel, you'll see a section marked questions. And if you hit the little arrow or caret, excuse me, so that it's down facing, you will see the question section expand. And you'll see you can type your questions in there. We can answer you privately or publicly. But more importantly, you don't have to worry about forgetting your question. You don't have to remember any of that, because your question, we'll have a record of it there. We'll be able to ask it at the appropriate time. So don't wait till the end of the webinar to type your question, and type it in real time as it comes into your head. And like I said, we will do our best to get that answered for you at the conclusion. There is another section of the webinar marked chats. Now, in our chat section, we use that here at DevOps.com is for if you're having any technical issues. Maybe the audio isn't working, slides aren't advancing. We have engineers standing by in our chat section who will help you. If you can type in there, they'll try to rectify and make sure that you get the best experience you can using our GoToWebinar system. Let me also state that today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on DevOps.com as well as our DevOps TV YouTube channel. And you'll be able to catch it there if for some reason you had to leave early or you want to recommend it to a friend. With that said, then, let us get started. As I mentioned, today's webinar is DevOps with Omnibus Integrations, and it is sponsored by Cover. Joining us, we have two people to introduce to you. First is Sumanil Chowdhury of Cover. He's been with Cover for over 10 years. And Sumanil will introduce himself in just a moment. However, introducing Sumanil and first on is the CEO of Cover, Bipin, and just making sure on our audio. Bipin, are you there?
Yes, I am, Alan. Thanks.
Great. So, guys, this is Bipin Shah, Chairman and CEO of Cover, who has a long history in Silicon Valley. Bipin, a pleasure to have you on today.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So, hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where your time zone is. As Alan said, this is Bipin Shah of Cover. Want to welcome all of you to this webinar. And the main part of the webinar, of course, as we said, will be conducted by Shomoni. But as an introduction, I just want to make 2 points. So one is that Cover's approach to DevOps is to let you use, the customer use as many of your current tools as you wish to use. And, you know, depending on your needs and your process and methodology that you want to follow, you may need to purchase a minimum set of tools. Most of them can be open source tools as well. And integrate all of these tools through the Cover Omnibus ESB and orchestrate the entire process with the Cover workflow on our Cover platform. So with that in mind, let me have Shomunil carry you through the rest of the story of Cover Omnibus. Both Omnibus as well as DevOps. Thank you. So Shomunil, take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Bipin. So good morning, good afternoon, and evening to all the attendees. I welcome you all on board. So we have organized this webinar into two parts. So in the first part, I'll take you through a PowerPoint presentation talking about the value propositions and other high-level features of a DevOps solution, and then follow it by a live product demo. So let's get started. So Cover DevOps is an enterprise solution which simplifies and automates the execution and monitoring of real-time metrics. So this can be done by integrating the best of the breed tools which help from various sectors like development, build, test, and deployment. Cover has developed a one-click solution for implementing this whole scenario. So first, let us look at the value propositions. Firstly, it lets you to achieve DevOps by protecting your investments and integrating your existing tools. So Cover, using its Omnibus integration platform, seamlessly work with what you already have. It helps you to integrate with your existing tool sets and make them a constituent of the DevOps ecosystem. Secondly, it lets you to orchestrate all phases of delivery lifecycle through the Cover task-based workflow and the Cover platform. So Cover's automated task-based workflow actually helps organizations, to implement a true DevOps solution where everything happens through automation, right from the point when the developer checks in the code into the source control. Thirdly, it helps you to reduce handshakes and lead times through workflow notification and business rules, thereby ensuring streamlining of activities through centralized governance. Fourthly, you can achieve one-click DevOps solution right from code check-in to production deployment. So, once the developer checks in his code to the source control, the Cover workflow engine, without any manual handoffs, fully manages the execution of the staging and production pipelines, which involves jobs like the build by Jenkins, deployment by Chef, and test automation by Selenium. Based on the results received in the staging environment, the workflow intelligently decides whether or not to execute the production pipeline. And lastly, it lets you to monitor release progress in a real time through cross-tool database reports and traceability. So using the Cover DevOps platform, all the tools participating can be integrated, and the data from each of these can be synced in real time and accumulated in the Cover central repository. So this data can be used to derive an end-to-end traceability, intelligent matrix, reports and dashboard, covering the phases of the delivery lifecycle. Moving on. So in this slide, you can find how the different phases like the initiation, the application development, test and acceptance, and finally production are brought together. Cover has adapters for various tools by which it can seamlessly integrate with these tools and achieve an end-to-end DevOps solution. So Cover currently offers an integration with 75 plus off-the-shelf tools, including proprietary and open source. Among these, the ones that you are seeing, the ones that are encircled in red, each catering to a particular phase of development lifecycle, are being used in our DevOps solution by integrating them using our Cover Omnibus integration platform. So here, on one hand, we are uh, using Cover for managing the automated DevOps workflow, tracking matrices and reports over various dashboards, and on the other hand, using it for tracking the releases, sprints, and backlogs. Eclipse being used as the IDE for the developers, GitHub as the source control, Jenkins for build, Chef for deployment, and Selenium for automation testing. Nevertheless, if an organization is using any other tools, like they're using SVN or TFS for source control, or Visual Studio as the IDE, so we can get those integrated as well and help the organization implement DevOps in their delivery process. So now let me guide you through a short animated flow on what we are going to showcase in our live product demo today. So we'll start our story by a set of prioritized backlogs in our agile solution. And once you assign those backlogs into a specified sprint and you approve that particular sprint, the Cover workflow will trigger the development process, and by which, using the Cover Omnibus integration, using our Eclipse Omnibus plugin, we will expose those backlogs to the developers from Eclipse IDE, based on which the developers can directly work on those backlogs, modify them, and then they can work on their code project, which is checked into, which is having its source control as GitHub. So they can work on the code file, and then once they have done their modifications, they can do the static code analysis in SonarQube. Now, based on the static code analysis, there are various matrices that can be derived out of SonarQube, like the general matrix, the development matrix, the document matrix, and all. So we will be extracting all the data using Cover Omnibus into the Cover Omnibus platform. Now, once this static code analysis phase is over, the developer now checks in the code into the GitHub source control. And once that is being done, a series of files a series of events are being generated out of GitHub, like the chain set, the relationship with the chain set, and the code file being modified, and also the repository, the branch, and all. So these can be all set up with respect to GitHub. Okay, so now once you are checking the code, you can also specify the backlog IDs for which you are checking the file. Now, once you commit, comes the actual commit code files and the related links that are being added. So now actually comes the DevOps one-click solution. So from now, the Cover workflow would trigger the pipeline for staging, and that particular pipeline consists of 3 jobs. The first one to be done by Jenkins for doing the build, followed by the deployment done by Chef, and the automation testing to be done by Selenium. So now, as Jenkins does its job, it also fetches the information through Cover Omnibus and gets automatically pushed into Cover Omnibus platform. Similarly, for the deployment information as well as the test result information gets populated in Cover Omnibus, so that you can derive an end-to-end traceability out of that. Now, once the staging pipeline is successfully completed, the production pipeline is triggered by the workflow, and without any manual handoffs, there also the jobs gets executed, and finally the production deployment is done. So that's the overall scenario that we will be showcasing in our demo today. So moving on, now let me take you through a quick glance of some of the reports that you can get in our DevOps solution. So first, talking about the release lead time and the processing time. So this report actually gives you a side-by-side comparison with respect to the lead and the processing time for each of the releases. So during planning and the development phases, manual handoffs are involved, which increase the lead time. However, with automation being introduced in later stages in the delivery life cycle, like during the staging and the production pipeline executions, the lead time gets minimized. As you can see over here, and the processing time is more. This is a release health report showing the health of the various releases being worked upon and currently in progress. So you can see the various status, whether a particular release has been finished lately, days exceeded and all. Some more reports like the distribution by deployment frequency. So this gives you a trend of how frequently deployments are getting done. The higher the number, it shows the developers. We can understand that the developers may be often doing changes, maybe incorrect builds are getting done. So causes could be many, but if the number is showing over a period of time, so it reflects like activities are getting streamlined and the quality of the build is getting improved. On the right, you can see the distribution of the change in volume by the particular user, and you can see the number of defects that he's submitting over. So if you can see over a period of time the number of defects that's being submitted by the user, which also gives a trend that whether the deployments, the builds are properly getting done or not. Now, this is a glimpse of the end-to-end traceability view that you can achieve from the Cover DevOps platform. So it's showing you the links of the related records right from starting from the releases. You can see what are the different sprints, what are the different backlogs associated to a sprint, what's the chain set being checked in from, what's the chain set that's being checked in from GitHub, what are the code files associated to the chain set, the jobs like the Jenkins jobs that are associated with this chain set got triggered, what are the bills that has got executed with respect to this particular job, and also you can see the associated pipeline views and the execution of those. So that helps you to get an end-to-end visibility of the various artifacts that you have been working in this various tools in your DevOps scenario. So that concludes my presentation, and now let me dive you into the product demo. So I hope I'm clear and audible from my end. So
Yes,
now
you're
let
fine.
me. Oh, great, thanks.
Okay.
So now getting into the second phase where I'll start my product demo by logging into the Cover Agile solution. And also this is the same platform that's being used for the Cover DevOps as well. So let me log in as Sam Duen and start working on the set of priority backlogs. So on the left, you can see the navigations and you can see the backlog store, which consists of the backlogs that are to be worked on. So let me select a particular view, which helps me to quickly glance what are the backlogs that are currently in my list. So you can see a list of backlogs over here. So now as a member of a particular team, that's Omega, I'll assign some backlogs into a sprint. So I'll go into my planning section, select the particular sprint. So I have a set of sprints being defined, and let me take on this particular sprint 1.0.5.11, and let me associate a set of backlogs to it. So from here, I'll go and link some existing backlogs from here. So let's say I link this particular backlog that this will be, this is a user story that we'll be working on this particular sprint. So once done, now this particular linking association of the backlog to the sprint triggers a workflow that it takes care of the following set of actions to be defined. So here you can see that automatically an email is being sent to the approver that look, the backlog has been associated to a sprint and you just go ahead and approve it. So what I'll do as an approver, I'll click on this particular link get into my cover applications, so let's say Robin Parker is the approver. So let me log in as Robin. And once I log in, I directly land up into the sprint that I'm supposed to approve. So here is the sprint. I can see the backlog also associated to it. No. So what triggered it at the background? So if I go back, you will find that in the process, there is a process that was automatically triggered at the background for this backlog the moment it got associated. So you can see this is the particular task that has been generated, and this task, as a result of it, has sent the notification. So what's the process? Let me give you a glance of the process from the end users mode. So this is the Cover workflow designer I was referring to in my during my presentation. So here you can see a series of activities are being defined in a sequential manner, and you can go up to any levels of complexity in defining this process. So it's absolutely customized, and it's done through mouse clicks. Not a single line of code is written to configure this particular process. So currently you can see the review stage is in the progress. So I'll come back, refer to this process and see how it proceeds. But now my job as Robin Parker is to approve this particular sprint. So I'll quickly edit the sprint and say, yeah, it's good to go ahead with the sprint, and save it. Now, the moment I save this particular sprint, automatically my task gets completed. And let me switch over to the process view. And if I refresh it, you will find that now automatically the task for the development has triggered. So if I go back to my backlogs and refresh it, you will see a set of tasks has been generated for my development team. So you can see over here that the set of tasks has been generated. Okay. So John Cruz and John Lewis has already been performed. So now let me play the role of a developer. So what I do is I get into my Eclipse environment. And here is the Omnibus plugin that lets me to give a glimpse of all my backlogs, all my backlogs that we are managing in Cover Agile Solutions. So as a developer, I do not need to get into Cover to view the backlogs. Okay. So now let me view the story right from here. So what I do is, oops, I clicked the wrong one. Sorry. So let me. So I was working in the user story that's 218. Okay, so you can see all the attribute information of the user story is available from here. So as a developer, what I'll do is I'll update the status to development started and save it. Okay, so I have updated the backlog, and now I'll go into my project code repository, and here is my code file, as you can see over here. So I'll do a small change over here, that let's say I have done my modification. I have done it for this user story of 218, and I save it. So once I've done the development, now I'll perform a set of static code analysis. So what I'll do is I'll perform the build using Ant to get my matrices from SonarQube. So here I'll run as and build, and here is the build is getting done by Ant, and once it's done, it will trigger the things in Sonar to fetch me the metrics into the Cover Omnibus platform. So here you can see the build is successful, and once satisfied, I'll now go ahead and check in this file into my GitHub source control. So team commit, and when I'm about to commit, I also specify my backlog ID as well. So the moment I say commit, The reason for specifying this backlog ID is that when I receive the genset, the relationship with the genset and the code file, I also, using the Coveware business rules, we can automatically set up the traceability with the user story that I modified this code. So an end-to-end traceability, which would allow me to see that this is the user story, these are the genset, this is the code file that was being addressed to address this particular user story. So with that, as far as my development phase is concerned, I'm done. So what I'll now do is I'll go back to my Coveware platform, and here if I refresh, you will see automatically the staging pipeline has got triggered. So let me quickly take you to the process diagram. So this is actually the essence from where the one-click DevOps is getting into the action. You can see, so automatically without doing any single thing, I can see that the Jenkins pipeline for staging has triggered. Okay, now once this is getting processed, let me give you a quick glance at the dashboards. So when I am going into my dashboard, let me give you a look at the release lead time and the processing time. So I was talking about this lead and the processing time during my presentation. So here you can see I have all these releases where the lead time is much lower with respect to my processing time, as you can see. But if you see further drilling down, when I focus on a particular stage like the planning, where manual handoffs are much more over there, you can see that the lead time is much more, because here people are involved in reviewing the sprints, planning the sprints, doing all these retrospective meetings, or estimating the sprints and all, also the initial development part. So that's why the lead time is much more. Okay, and here you can see in the development time, the scenario is different, where the processing time is higher and the lead time is lower, because after the development phase, like the automation comes into place, where immediately once the developer checks in the code, the build is getting triggered using the Coveware workflow. Once the build is done, the deployment is getting triggered, and there is very less time where manual handoffs there is no chance of any manual handoffs. So these are the scenarios that you can see over here, and various ways you can see the staging pipeline, very low lead and very high processing time. Also, let me give you some more release related reports and matrices. So here you can see the pipelines that has been working in actual Jenkins. So here you can see the staging pipeline, where actually the various jobs are getting triggered, like the deployment. So you from here you can see a real time what's the status of each of the jobs that are being there in the pipeline. So currently it's getting processed, and the reflection are getting done in Coveware platform. So as a build manager, you do not have to go in multiple times to see what's the status of the build or the various other jobs in the pipeline. Now, from team assignments, these are the 3 teams that are currently working on various sprints, and what are the tasks being assigned to them. What are the releases that are at risk? So you can have those in dashboard and can take corrective actions. Also, with respect to each of these releases, what are the release health? What's the current status? When were they being started? So a greater glimpse of all these tasks, or all these releases, can be viewed from here as well. Also, you can further drill down to see what are the tasks which are being completed, which have not yet been started, and also what are the different releases per month. So a whole lot of reports that gives you enough details and enough insights to see the releases of that we are getting tracked. Okay, so with that, let me again go back into the process diagram and let me see how it's moving. Okay, so the staging pipeline is done, and currently the production pipeline is on. So is there any way to see how the pipelines are getting executed? The answer is yes. So once we go into the builds, we have the section called pipeline execution. So it shows in real time how the pipelines are getting executed. So here you can see the staging pipeline is done, and currently the deployment of the production pipeline is going on. So if you want to drill down to the details of it, so from here you can click on the console output, and it fetches all the build related information right from Jenkins on demand. So the entire pipeline management can be done from the application, from the Cover DevOps platform itself. Similarly, if I do a refresh, you can see that the production deployment job is done, because in the production pipeline there are two jobs. The build is already being done in staging, so the same build is being taken into production, and now the test automation is getting triggered, and we are getting reflected the scenario from here. So let me refresh it once, and yes, the pipeline execution is over. What's my process diagram is saying now? So let me go back and check my process. Yeah, so it's green. So the process is completed for this particular backlog. Isn't it a one-click solution? So I haven't touched anything, and I haven't seen anything. I haven't done any manual information, and the entire DevOps involving the delivery, the deployment, the automation, being done through a single click. So now with that, now let me take you into some of the other dashboards as well. So getting on to the dashboards for the backlog visibility now. So you can see a series of dashboards over here. Now let me take you to the backlog visibility dashboard, which gives you another set of gadgets where you can view all your backlogs with respect to the various releases. So if you expand, you can see each of those user stories, your backlogs, each of these releases. If you click, so here you can see the item with which we worked, and further you can see what's the release coverage, whether the backlogs have been properly assigned to, and whether how many are not assigned. On the right, you can see the distribution by releases and status. So these are the various status that you can see over here of the different backlogs. So from here, it gives you a visibility of the entire, but I must tell you that these are not just static images. So if I click over here, it takes me to the actual list of records. So allow pop-ups. So once I click, it has drill down capabilities by means of which I can actually navigate to the list of records that satisfy this particular sector. Okay, so here you can see all the various backlogs that's being there. Also, let me take you into the DevOps dashboard. So here you can see a series of gadgets organized in 3 columns. So Cover dashboards allows you to create various kinds of formats, and here you can see all the distribution by percentage on the volumes. That's So here you can see the distribution of percentage of past and failed deployments. So looking at such a gadget, you can see that the deployments of success and failures is mapped side by side. So gives you a chance to look into it, drill down, and further do some modifications in the process as well. Distribution by change in new customer ticket volume. So if builds are proper, if developers are following this process of checking proper files, the builds are getting done properly, the customer tickets will will be lessening. So these are all these various reports, like we showed this in the presentation, like distribution by deployment frequency, uh, the application distribution, and also the defect fixed time track. So all these, if you want to further see the details of this, you have the option, you click on the pop-up and this list gets expanded and you can see much more information in the top pop-up view as well. Okay. So distribution in change in user volume, application distribution by defects density, what's the total number of defects per application, what's been the source code. So even with respect to each of these applications, you can get to the details, like what's the source line of the code, what's been the defect density for each of these applications and all. So such is the vastness of the reports that you can span across, and you can distribute these reports in various formats, in organize them in various dashboards, and you can assign this dashboard to various stakeholders based on the particular role they are playing in the project. So regarding these reports, after these reports and matrix, let me take you to the traceability. So for the traceability, so over here, let me take you to the application. So we have something called trace view. So here you can see the cover DevOps demo, that's the application, and underneath that DevOps demo, you have a series of releases. Oops, sorry. Oops. So here I have the COVID DevOps demo, and underneath the application, I have the associated release link to it. Further drilling down the release, I get to see the sprints that are associated to this release. Drilling down the sprint, I get to see the associated backlogs that are being linked, and you can see. Further drilling down the user story, I get to see the chain set that was being checked in from GitHub to address this particular user story. And in this way, you can get to see the code file, further the jobs, and down the jobs. I can further drilling down to the bills, and then to the pipelines and all these views. So such this kind of traceability, you can define and customize it. You can define it at the release level, you can define the application level, you can define it at the backlog level to backtrace, like which is the sprint that this backlog is associated to, what's the release. On other hand, what's the chain set being checked in for implementing this particular user story and all. So you can have the traceability view, multiple traceability views defined at multiple levels. So with that, we conclude my live product demo, and now I can take on those questions.
Fantastic. Excellent demo, excellent presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Thank you, Samel. We have quite a number of questions here. If it's okay, we can jump right into them.
Sure.
Okay. First question goes back to slide 4, one of your earliest. And there were tools there, like, for instance, Rally, Jira, version 1, Storyteller. They were in the diagram because of the integration there, correct? Agile ALM tools?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, very good. I thought so, but I wanted to give you the ultimate answer there.
Yes.
So Vlad asks, can he put this project and see it on his Kanban board?
Yes. So we do have a Kanban solution as well, and he can track he can track the various artifacts using the Kanban solution as well. So uh, we allows you to create various Kanban templates, and then you can define a board using the templates with various card types like the defects, the user stories, the tasks, and you can organize those in various columns, distributing those columns into further sub levels like in progress, done, and you can track those across the Kanban board. Yes,
Got it.
you can do it.
Okay. Do you support Epic Story Task Hierarchy?
Yes, if you want, we can do that as well. So if you look at into this various work items, you can define an epic and you can decompose, you can break an epic into multiple features. You can further decompose those features into stories. And then you can actually take on those stories into the backlog store for further planning and getting associated into the sprints. So yes, the answer is yes.
Excellent. What about change management integrations, such as, let's say, ServiceNow or something like that?
Of course. So we also, using our DevOps solution, can address the post-deployment stage as well, where in this particular demo, we have focused on the pre-deployment, the pre-production stage. So I can say like we have implemented a post-production story as well, where the customer is actually working in an application, and based on that, he gets some defect and he logs that defect into ServiceNow, and that's the customer, that's the external team, the ops team is working on it. Now it could be Jira, where the internal development team is working, and I can automatically synchronize that particular ticket as a defect to the internal team that they evaluate in the staging environment and reproduce the bug, and then they can actually start working on it. And in a similar way, like the developer checks works on the code file, checks in, and that automatically triggers the workflow for managing the staging pipeline, the production pipeline, deployment gets successfully done, and eventually automatically, once the developer goes back to Jira and says yes, the dev defect is resolved, automatically that again reflects back the information back in ServiceNow. So thereby the customer checks in production and says yes, the issue is resolved. So we can do such a post-production scenario as well using the DevOps story.
Very good. What about a view into logs? Is it possible to get a view into the logs here?
Viewing into logs.
Yes, to view. In other words, if someone wanted to go back to logs and look just for forensics or what have you, is it possible?
Yeah, so we do have, so whenever actually we are dealing with an integration scenario, logs are very essential. So there could be the Cover Omnibus platform provides two sets of logs. One is the real-time log, that's we call it the sync monitor, where actually an administrator or I would say a bridge administrator gets to see the data in real time and how it actually synchronizes. So let me give you a glimpse of that. So Omnibus gives you a real-time sync monitor log over here. So as data is moving from one tool to another, you get to see what's the successful events occurring. So this is one type of log in real time. We also have detailed summary logs as well. Like with respect to a particular event, you can check what's the event, and with respect to that, what's the actions. So if you look into let's say ServiceNow, so events from ServiceNow, you can see over here, further drilling down, you can get to see all the information with respect to the action that has been occurred with respect to this. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Our next question is, does the Cover tool replace the need for a version 1 or Jira?
Yes, like Cover has its Cover can very well be used as a defect management tool as well as It can also be used as an agile tool as well for version 1. So you can use Cover for managing your defects. And in that way, like your internal development team can be using Cover for tracking their defects. On the other hand, Cover has an agile solution which you can definitely use to track your releases, your sprints. You can estimate, you can actually define your user stories, you can estimate your stories. And also Cover has an inbuilt task and timesheet management system as well. So in agile, you as you are planning your sprints, you can actually use the tasks and the time taken to work on these tasks. And actually we have used our task and timesheet management system very efficiently with respect to, like, whenever there was a task that the developer works and he finishes. So we are tracking the start time, the finish time. We are trapping the time, converting into the duration, and thereby we are plotting this lead and the processing time of these releases. So that's what we are doing. So yes, the answer is yes.
Excellent. Um, can we say that release is like Epic?
I'm sorry, I didn't get. I
I'm not
didn't get.
sure myself because there's two questions here by Anand and correcting the first. He first wrote, can we release like it is Epic? And then he meant to say, can we say release is like Epic?
Uh, like epics are big stories that you can decompose into. Like COVID doesn't impose any hardcore rule that this is your epic and you have to manage it in epics like this only. So COVID lets you to configure the solution as per your business needs. Okay. So if you meant to say that yes, I would like epics to be my releases, um, if that particular scenario you want to, that's your business need, yes, you can go ahead and define those epics as releases in the application. So there is the relevant entity being defined, you can track it over there as well. But technically speaking, epics and releases are different.
Got it.
Epics.
Got it. So I think that brings us to the end of our questions, Sumanel, which is good. I think it also indicates that you did a great job with this demo and the slides. Thank you again so much. Thank you very much to Cover for
Yes,
sponsoring.
Thank you.
so
And
thanks to all the attendees, and Ellen, you're very welcome, and thanks for organizing this.
thank you, and a special thank you to Bipin Shah for coming in here as Chairman CEO of Cover and appearing as well. Bipin, thank you. I think it was well done. Let's do it again. But until then, that'll call a wrap on today's webinar. Thank everyone for attending. Most of all, this is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon on another DevOps.com webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.